We now return to Piracy Watch on DZRJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines. Here's your host, Sarah Jane Sugitan.
Welcome everyone. We're still on the Piracy Watch right here on the Voice of the Philippines, DZRJ 810 AM. For any questions on your trademark registration, for example, you have a brand, you want to protect it, and the only way to protect it is to own it by registering it with the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. Please call us up at 751-0395 to register your trademarks and your patents. Now, for reports on anything related to piracy, please call our hotline at 752-4870. Again, that's 752-4870. For anything piracy related, all information that you will relate to us will be held in confidence. Yeah, joining me this morning is Miss Michelle Flor, the copyright examiner, the one and only copyright examiner of the National Library. I'm thinking kasi it's like a division, like in the IPO, in the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, trademark, the Bureau of Trademark has examining divisions. So you have 4 divisions with examiners, and when you submit an application for trademark, we look at it, we examine it, and then we search our database for possible objections on whether or not we can allow your trademark to be registered. Examples of objections are it is similar to a previously registered mark, and as you know, we have a first-to-file system when it comes to trademark. So, kung naunahan kang magrehistro ng another company, you cannot register that trademark anymore unless you file for the cancellation of that trademark. But this morning, we're talking about registration of copyrighted works with the National Library. And as we said earlier, under the law, it is not required to register your works, your photos, your thesis, your literary works with the National Library because copyright exists from the moment of creation. However, we do encourage you to register and deposit your works with the National Library or the Supreme Court if it's a law book or a legal treatise, so that we can keep a record of your work. You know, it's a government database, and for evidentiary purposes. Yeah, and, earlier, Miss Michelle, during the break, Miss Michelle Flor and I were talking about her work in the National Library. She's been there for 7 years now, and yun nga, she's the only copyright examiner. Are there instances when you reject, for example, copyright registration?
Reject in the sense that the work is really not copyrightable. For example, someone wants to register a name. We get questions of whether they can register their band name, for example.
Talaga?
So I tell them, I give them the number of the IPO, call the Bureau of Trademarks. You can ask them there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to, copyright your name, the proper, the technical term really is trademark your name. So, like Harry Potter is a name that's a registered trademark. And, the way to register that is with the IPO as a trademark. Now, for your book, ayan, that's when you go to the National Library. Your song, musical arrangement.
Yes.
Diba? And you were saying earlier, there are now more and more schools and universities that are gearing towards registration.
Yes, they're encouraging their students to register their works with our office.
Mm-hmm. Ano yung mga schools na ito, for example, that you have worked with?
For the past 2 or 3 years, I've noticed Mapua, they're in particular their computer engineering students.
Ano ba yung output kapag computer engineering books?
Actually, thesis pa rin.
Thesis. Okay.
Thesis ito, Mapua, TUP sometimes, and then, what do you call this? I forgot the other one.
LaSalle, you were saying earlier,
for
Benilde.
Students of Benilde, yes. There's, I think it's one particular professor, I don't know who he is, but he requires his students, they have parang a paper on parang ethics or something. He requires his students to register it with our office. And then yung students ni Attorney Francisco,
Emma
Francisco, yes. She also requires them to register their work, any kind of work, to register with the National Library. And then there's another professor sa Benilde then that he requires his maybe it's a photography class kasi photographs yung nire-register nila naman.
So they submit copies. As you said, copyright registration only costs you 200 pesos.
Yes.
Pero you can only file it with the National Library
at the moment.
So you have to go to the National Library personally. How about yung mga provincial libraries? Wala pa silang functions?
The provincial libraries, no, they don't accept applications. For provincial applicants, the practice is normally they either download the application form and then they fill it up and then they send it to us through regular mail or through courier, through LBC, JRS.
But what about the payment? How do they? How can they remit it to the National
usually
Library?
it's in the form of postal money order.
Postal money. Yeah, kasi it's only 200 pesos, diba? Although there are instances when they turn down applications. Like for example, if the more appropriate registration is trademark, or you submit an invention there, the new iPad or something, diba? They don't accept that. They would most likely refer you to the IPO, and vice versa. Even in the Intellectual Property Office, whenever may mga queries about trademark, rather copyright registration, we refer them naman to the National Library, particularly to Miss Michelle Flor right here, who handles copyright examination. And earlier we were saying that the platform, and Mr. Harry asked that the platform for most works is still a hard copy.
Yes.
So, but although you are, of course, digitizing works
actually,
inside the National
the
Library.
priority of the National Library for digitization at the moment is yung mga rare and rare collections.
Oo,
Yes.
Filipiniana.
Mm-mm.
Yan, so yun yung unang dinidigitize.
Kasi to make it more accessible then to make it more accessible to the reading public, diba? To the users of the library. Kasi at the moment, if it's in the rare books section, you have to get special permission to be able to enter yung rare, kasi rare books nga siya.
Oo.
Pero kung
baka
digitize siya, at least pwede mo siyang i-check through sa multimedia section namin.
Ayan. So you also have a multimedia section. Pero the National Library is up online. You can view, we can view, search your database online. But we cannot read books online from the website.
Actually, what's available online is the database of the National Library. The copyright database, kasi we're still working on completing that, so it's not yet available online. Eventually, we will make it available.
So the copyright database is also hard copy. So
yes,
hard
copy. Although we've had some progress naman na I think we've already encoded about 10 years siguro worth. Pero medyo marami pa rin yun kasi
10 years worth of works. That's really a lot.
We've been accepting applications since I think the oldest certificate I saw was 1945 or 46.
Wow, 1945. So meron ng works na registered with the National Library as early as 1945 in terms of copyright registration. So you can see the volume of works accumulating every year na kailangang i-archive ng particularly ng Copyright Division headed by Miss Michelle Flor right here.
No, actually, I'm not the head of the division.
No, you're not. Okay. Pero she's the copyright examiner. Ayan. So, she can also, the National Library also rejects copyright registration, particularly when it is not copyrightable. Like, earlier you were saying you want to copyright a shape, for example. So,
or just a color, for example.
Talaga? So people,
colors are,
may mga nag-a-apply sa inyo ng copyright for colors?
Like, for example, just the other week, name, and then sabi ko, that's not copyrightable, you better go to trademark. But about just the color, sabi ko, no, you just ask trademark na lang siguro. Kasi trademark, diba, I'm really not familiar with it, but I think you accept yung pati yung sa color and diba?
Yes, basta used in commercial purposes eventually, so pwede mo siya i-market. Yan, and definitely brand names, so trademarks yan. Pero kapag literary and artistic works yan, copyright. What other works can be deposited with the National Library, Michelle?
Books, periodicals, letters even. You can submit yung letters if you want, diba? Kasi may copyright din siya. Musical compositions, drawings, sculptures, sabi mo nga before, even maps.
Even maps. So you have
even computer programs actually.
So meron ng registrants.
Kasama siya sa literary and artistic works.
So, meron ng mga nag-register na computer. Yan. So, all of you software engineers out there na naggagawa ng mga programs and what source codes, ayan, during election time, it was the one of the things one of the intellectual property that was most sought after. So, if you have a source code, you deposit it register it with the National Library so that you can have what do you issue?
We issue a certificate of registration and deposit.
Okay, so you'll have that certificate of registration. Malaki ba yan? Parang diploma? Hindi naman. A4, yan. Stating that you are the copyright owner of so-and-so work, yan, with the description in there. And it is issued by the National Library. Usually, other functions of the National Library include the issuance of the what do you call that, ISBN and the ISSN. So mostly talaga literary works, literary figures deal with the National Library, as you said earlier, the publishers, aside from the authors, students, especially now that universities are getting more and more aware that they have to protect the intellectual property of their students.
Actually, for some university, like state universities, we also get applications from professors yung output naman nila for research. Kasi parang requirement din yata.
Nire-require na rin.
Nire-require na rin sila.
Yeah, and it's good, no, that schools and universities are starting to require, even professors, so they're slowly becoming more and more aware of copyright and its importance. Mahirap na kasi in the future, there will be a conflict or an infringement, or you never know, the next great novel might have been deposited with the National Library, the next Harry Potter, or the next great Filipino romance novel. It's already being written by a genius at this very moment. And kung wala kang copyright, if you do not exercise ownership over your work, more likely you will feel aggrieved. Okay? Kung bawa nakopya yan, or it has been turned into a movie without your permission. Di ba? I mean, there are a lot of experiences na ganon. That's very sad because there's money in the Philippines, especially when it comes to the creative industry, where we're never short of creative output as a people, and we have to become more aware with our rights as authors and artists in the industry. Yeah. So if you have any queries with the National Library, do check out their website.
Our website is at web.nlp.gov.ph.
Yeah. The National Library is a government agency.
And then if you have queries, you can email me directly at copyright@nlp.gov.ph.
Yeah, very good. So copyright at NLP,
National Library, National Library of the Philippines.
nlp.gov.ph. For your registration, it only takes 200 pesos to register. How long bago ma-issue pala a certificate of registration?
We issue the certificate 1 month after we accept the
after
application.
acceptance. Okay, how many applications do you entertain in a day?
It actually depends because sometimes you get say 10 people, but this 10 people, one of them has 30 applications, for example. So
marami.
it would depend.
It would depend. Pero at least now there's more applicants who are students, precisely
Yes.
because there are schools and there are professors requiring their students to register their photographs. And yun nga lang,
Perhaps
hindi
to
pa siya
make them more
digitized.
aware of their rights din.
Kasi I mean, you in your experience, there have been conflicts, of course, arising when, for example, a photograph kinopya na magazine or without compensation.
Actually, they don't come to us in terms of pag yung may mga issues ng infringement conflicts Kasi solely registry lang kami talaga.
Oo. Yun. And intellectual property, as I was discussing yesterday in UP Diliman, intellectual property at the moment is a private right. It's a property right, and you have to exercise ownership over it. You have to be the one to defend your property right against trespassing, no? So it's like a car or a parcel of land. You be the one to police your own intellectual property. So private effort. So yeah. So we'll return shortly here on Piracy Watch. For now, we're going to take a short break.
This is